I actually only started flipping homes after I quit my corporate job. So
Okay.
I only bought my first deal to flip after I had given my notice at Nordstrom and said I'm no longer doing this job, because here's the reason why. Every time that I went to do something.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. I love real estate so much because of the opportunities that it can create for people from any walk of life. You can be anyone from anywhere and have an opportunity to be successful in real estate. Today, we have an amazing guest whose story is sure to inspire you no matter who you are. This guest moved to the US from India at the age of 24 and wasted no time in making her mark. From having success in the corporate world to founding her own real estate firm, owning commercial space, and creating one of the most prominent meetups in the Seattle area, this person has so much knowledge to share with us. You may know her as the person that made $1 million from one flip. I'm excited to announce Leka Devatha. Thank you so much for being here, Leka.
Thank you so much for having me, and it gives me so much joy to now be interviewed by you after interviewing you last year. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
very excited. So yeah, that was a lot of fun getting
Mhm.
to see your commercial space and the great events and the planning that you've got going on there. So thanks for that invite too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So diving right in, tell us a little bit about what you've got going on right now, what your business looks like, and kind of level set for the audience on everything you've got going on here.
Okay, so right now I am in the middle of about 8 different projects. I'm building my first Dadu detached accessory dwelling unit, to about to take on my very first, most expensive rehab project I've ever done on a single house. It's a 350K rehab on a $1 million flip. Or $1 million purchase. And then I am revamping my event space. So just designing it super cool, and it's going to look very different from when you first saw it. And then I'm also working on converting a single unit into 2 separate units and converting that into an Airbnb. So just so much going on from a real estate standpoint perspective. And of course, I'm constantly underwriting deals, be it multifamily syndications or single family flips or something more creative. So apart from that, I also host a monthly meetup in the Seattle area, and we have great guests. My upcoming guest is Cliff Averill, retired Seahawks player. So I am really excited to dive into kind of his story of how he went from playing on the field to what he does now. Doing the same things, multifamily syndications, new construction, luxury infill, new construction deals, and fix and flips. So it'll be cool to hear his story too.
Yeah, that's great. So as you mentioned, you've got meetups, you've got your YouTube channel that you've
Yeah.
been very involved in for a number of years now. I think 3 or 4 years.
Yep.
You've got flips going on, new construction, a little bit of everything, right? So
A little bit of everything. And that's why I love real estate, is that you can do a little bit of everything, and you can really learn so many different aspects of the business. And it's kind of ties it all to, it just boils down to your hustle and your grit.
for sure.
And then you can achieve anything.
For sure. So I guess, one of the stories that when I first met you, I heard is the story of the $1 million flip, right? You
Yes.
were able to, and was this something, maybe you could tell us if this is something that you were doing when you were still working full time, or is this kind of the flip that took you into full-time real estate? Because that would be quite the launch pad if that's the
Yeah.
case.
No, it's not. So I quit my corporate career in 2014, and then I just flipped homes, and never looked at other exit strategies. I just flipped homes until this project. This was my first project, but I took it and I was like, wait, what can I do? Because it just came on a really large lot. And so instead of just flipping the house and making like 50 grand on it, I said, okay, why not take it and then see if I can subdivide the lots or build additional units on it. So I started that process, and it was going to be a quick 6-month flip. Ended up being a 4-year lot subdivision a short plat, and I sold it after 4 years. Sold the single family house that was on the property, renovated it beautifully, sold it for 1 million, and then I had subdivided that whole lot into three parcels. So I had two additional lots that someone could buy and build a house on, and ended up selling those two lots for 500 a piece. And I bought this project for about 500K. So
Wow.
it's a
Okay.
good.
What a story. So how did you navigate even finding out about, entitlements and being able to split that lot into four?
Yeah, it was hard. It was not something that I'd ever done before. So I worked with the city a lot. The city of it was in Sammamish, so the city of Sammamish, and really went through. And they had a very tedious, arduous process. So I went through the process, took it one step after another, and piggybacked off of Toll Brothers that was doing a long plat right behind me. So they were bringing water and sewer and electricity, all the utilities. So I had to basically wait for them to do their part so then I could then do my part. And so that whole process typically takes about a year, year and a half. Took me 4 years because it was just a really complicated process. So through those 4 years, I was at the city a lot, talking to the city, permits and construction team, working with horizontal developers, working with all kinds of utility companies to basically make this work. I had to get something signed off from every neighbor that was surrounding me. So I worked with attorneys to get that done. It wasn't an easy process. And I'm going to say this. Yes, I made a lot of money, but there's a lot of other ways to make that same amount of money in a much shorter, less complicated way. So sometimes just because it's available to you, it may not be the right thing for you. It also depends on your experience and what you want to do long term.
For sure.
For me, I don't want to subdivide lots long term. That's not my passion. That's not where my strengths lie. So, yes, I did that, but I'm never going to do that again. I
Interesting.
just think there's much more funner, quicker ways to make money.
Right. Because yeah, you also do a lot of flips. So what would you say is your average like in and out on a flip, like a traditional single family home that you're just renovating and getting back on the market?
Yeah, so I think like the deal costs are typically 1 million per flip that I do,
Mhm.
and then the profit on that is anywhere from 150 to 250K.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
And that timeline, do you think that's more like 6 months or?
yeah, it's about 6 to 8 months. It just depends on, is it a straight up split entry or is there more to it? Am
Right.
I building a structure in the back? Like the project that I just bought in June, um, I'm going to be done and on the market in April. But that's a single family rehab with a full daru built. So it just depends on how large the project is.
Gotcha. Okay. So you could probably do 8 to 10 of your traditional model flips in the same amount of time, probably make more money than
Exactly.
than you did there. Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting. Did you know going into that $1 million flip that you were planning to subdivide the lot into four, or did it
Not
start
at
out?
all.
Okay.
Going into it, I was like, oh, this is a good, like easy 80, 90K remodel. We'll just remodel and get it back on the market in a couple months. And that's it. We're golden. Because the floor plan itself of that existing house is great. There's literally nothing to change, move, open. So it was already there. It was a pretty cosmetic flip. But the day I bought the house, I was doing a neighborhood drive through, and my neighbor's lot had a huge lot subdivision plaque. And so I was like, okay, what is that? What does that even mean? So that's when I started to dig in because my lot size was as big as my neighbor's. So I was like, okay, if he's subdividing his lot, I should be able to do the same. That kind of started the process. And that's when I went to the city and I was like, oh, I can actually subdivide this. So then I flipped the house, or rather, rehab the house, put a long term tenant in there, did a refinance. So, took my hard money loan out and replaced it with a conventional loan, and then held that property for 4 years. So, I didn't have to pay any mortgage on it because the rent covered the mortgage, my PITI basically. And so it was great because I didn't have any, like, I didn't have cash flow, but I didn't
Right.
have any expenses.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest things that I've found in doing kind of some of the smaller single family development. I just built my first dadu as well. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people try to have everything figured out like on day one
Yeah.
and think that it's going to work out like that every time, like it's going to be a 3 to 6 month play. And they don't build in kind of that flexibility to see, where a rate's going to be when you're at that sale point. Where is the market going to be?
Yeah.
Do you want to sell the front house and keep the back house, or having those different types of options? Just it's important to reevaluate every
Yeah.
step of the way to see kind of what makes sense based on where the market's at. So
Exactly.
that's a really,
Yep.
really good example of that. Cool. So won't do that again, but you learned a lot along the way, I'm sure.
I
Um,
did.
in terms of, it sounds like you were able to get a great tenant in there and lower your holding costs. Um, I just saw you on Cairo 7 News sharing a story about maybe another example of where you didn't have such a great tenant in there.
Yeah.
Maybe talk a little bit about your squatting nightmare and how you were able to handle that. And yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was emceeing the Bigger Pockets conference last year, and just before I got on stage, I got a call from my property manager saying that someone had taken over one of my units in Queen Anne. And if you know Queen Anne's not the dumpy, C class, D class property area. Queen Anne is like A plus, B plus.
Yeah.
So really one of my best buildings. This was a triplex, and the top unit had like views of Magnolia Bridge and just the water and Interbay Golf Course. So that whole unit was occupied by someone who broke into the house, changed the locks, and then brought in their pets, their furniture, clothes, and everything, and just like got really comfy. And when I spoke to them and I said, look, you don't have a signed lease with me. You can't live in my house. You're trespassing. They basically said they had signed a lease with someone on Craigslist, and they had gained access into the property, and that's why they had moved in. So I tried to get the cops involved. The cops said that it was a civil matter and couldn't do anything to help. And then I finally had to. My property manager had hired an attorney who then we fired, and then brought in my own attorney who was just amazing. And then she and I worked together with the media, with the Seattle Police Department, and we finally, with the help of the cops, I was able to raid the place, get these squatters in handcuffs, and remove them. So
Wow.
it's quite a challenge, but
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
How long of a time period was that it kind of beginning to end that it took you to get them out of there?
about a month.
Wow. Okay. That's
Yeah,
actually pretty
it's
pretty
pretty fast.
efficient. Yeah.
A lot of like, so when the squatter story was happening, I got a lot of calls and messages from other people that had squatters in their homes. And they had squatters for a year, 18 months, 2 years, even 3 years sometimes. And these people were displaced out of their own real estate by these squatters. And sometimes tenants become squatters,
Hmm.
sometimes they're trespassers. We were able to establish that they were trespassers. And so there's a whole other like law that goes into that. And then it's a funny story because they had moved in, like I said, they had all their furniture, their clothes, their shoes, and they'd gotten so comfortable living in this house. And when the cops took them out, they made me walk through the house with the cops. And when we walked in, I saw these stripper pole. So the woman was an OnlyFans content creator, and so she had a giant stripper pole in my living room. And I was like, okay, I'm glad that is over with, and
Wow.
deal with that.
You'd think on OnlyFans they'd be able to pay some, pay rent or afford a place, but that is a
Right,
crazy story.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, crazy.
Okay. So yeah, it's not always a straight road to the top, right? There's
Oh,
lot of challenges along the way.
lot of challenges, lots of roads to navigate alone.
Yeah. And I think overall you'd say you're hitting a pretty good percentage in terms of wins versus losses on your flips, but being that flips inherently are fairly risky business, even if you've got your processes in place like you do. Was there a time when you've lost a fair amount of money on a flip, on the flip side of your $1 million gain?
Yeah.
I think you had an experience there where it didn't quite go as well as planned.
So yes, we just closed on a deal that I bought in 2021. It was going to be another simple cosmetic rehab, but the contractor that we hired, after great research and speaking with all his referrals, going to his projects, making sure that he was legitimate, ended up ghosting our project within 3 months. He had also told us that all permits were retrieved from the city, but he hadn't even applied for permits. And so what he did cost us basically a year in renovation. So we had to end up going with other contractors to finish the job. Once that was done, we had to go back to the city and say, can you retroactively give us permits? So we ended up sitting on the market for almost a year, not being able to sell the house. And then we finally got permits, sold the house, and we were slated to make a 300K profit. And instead of making a 300K profit, we ended up making a 100K loss. So
Wow.
not fun, but honestly, that process has taught us so much, just in terms of what to do and what not to do. And it was an out of state flip for me. So just, going through all of those um, challenges, not even being like actually in the location, was a big learning experience.
Yeah, what would you say for somebody that wants to get into flips would be kind of the number one rule or process that you've implemented to avoid these types of situations?
I would say a lot of people say flip out of state, you don't even have to go to the project. I think that's true for rental properties, but the turnkey rental properties actually. But if you have any kind of rehab or construction to be made, or you're buying a distressed property, it's important that you're in the same city to be able to handle challenges quickly, swiftly, and fix problems. So I would say, first, do it where you can see the project every day. Second, partner with someone that has done that before so that they can take you through a winning process.
I love that. Yeah, that's great advice because there's so many people that are going out of state, whether it's for flips or even for buy and hold rentals, just because it is harder and harder to cash flow in areas like Seattle or these high cost of living cities.
Yeah.
But there's so much value in investing in your own backyard, being able to drive by your property every day, being able to have that network of other investors like yourself that have vetted contractors or vetted property managers. So I totally agree in terms of really taking advantage of your knowledge in your own backyard.
For sure. Yeah, there's a huge advantage to it.
Along those same lines, a lot of people, not only because of the cost of construction and the cost of real estate in these high cost areas like Seattle, but there's also a lot of concern around the legalities and property management considerations and tenant rights and things of that nature. Are you still investing heavily in the Seattle area despite some of those concerns, or are you looking outside of the Seattle area as well?
No, I'm actually investing heavily in the greater Seattle area. In fact, my entire rental portfolio is right here. And the reason for that is, yes, we do have better, laws to suit tenants, not landlords. But at the same time, we have an amazing tenant pool of people with great jobs, high paying jobs, stable jobs, and good people. So if you are able to get good tenants in your properties and buy in appreciating areas, I feel like you can cash flow but also appreciate. A lot of markets with great cash flow, like the Midwest, Southeast markets, they don't appreciate in real estate. They don't appreciate as quickly as we do. Seattle, the real estate market appreciates double every 6 to 7 years. I bought two properties back in 2017, 2018 for under 250K, and I ended up selling each for 500K last year. So I just don't see that kind of appreciation in other markets. So yes, there are cons to investing in, especially in rental property in our market, but I also feel like the pros of that is your real estate does gain value in a short amount of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I mean, to put that in perspective, right? Just quick numbers. You said 250,000 in 5 years, right? And of
Yeah,
course, that's equity, that's gross, and people can bring up taxes and all that. But to make that equivalent amount in cash flow, right? That would be 4 to 5 thousand a month per building in cash flow,
hmm,
which is not happening. You're probably investing, $1 million to $2 million
right.
in purchase price to get that $4 or $5 thousand a month cash flow. And then on the flip side, a lot of the time when you're looking at numbers, and I've learned this personally, the cash flow numbers are always good on the pro forma and on paper, and they're higher in the Midwest. But when you actually get into it and you start owning those properties, the cost of repairs is
Yeah,
more common. You're going to have higher costs there. You're going to have higher turnover, higher issues with delinquencies. So your economic occupancy is going to be lower. So really,
exactly.
yeah, relying on those paper cash flow numbers is something to really be careful about when you're thinking that you're going to get that better return in the Midwest or
Right. And
elsewhere.
I mean, it may not be that appreciating markets is for everyone. A lot of people actually want that monthly income in cash flow. So then those other markets are better suited. They don't really need the long term appreciation. They'd rather have like every month, they'd rather make like mailbox money or, it could be a paycheck of sorts. So definitely look at what you want for yourself and then invest in those areas that are well suited for those projects.
Totally. Yeah, we've talked a lot about that, you and I, and also just in the
Yeah.
area, just in terms of depending on where you're at in your own real estate investing career, you might lean more towards cash flow versus appreciation. Leka is
Hmm.
a very successful, real estate investor, has a lot of earned income, active income coming in elsewhere. So she's able to probably not focus as much on cash flow because she's able to keep
Right.
that money coming in elsewhere. For others that are early 20s wanting to get out of their careers or W-2s as fast as possible, it may be an area where you want to look more towards cash flow to replace that earned income faster, and then you can start focusing on areas that are maybe a little bit higher appreciation.
Exactly.
Totally agree with you. Um, so as we mentioned, you're having this success now. You didn't, this all did not happen overnight.
Yeah.
Maybe we could go back a little bit and talk about, you came here to the U.S. at the age of 24, and you immediately hit the ground running.
Yeah.
With success in your W-2 career, working at Nordstrom, which is one of the biggest companies in the area, not named
Yeah.
Amazon or Microsoft. Maybe talk a little bit about what that was like moving over and how you were able to, get your footing and get your momentum going.
Yeah, coming here from India, in India, I worked for a fashion house and I was um, basically helping the owner of this fashion house buy amazing fashion, amazing clothing from different brands and designers across the country. So coming from that role and having such a big part to play in this company, coming from there to the US on an H-4B visa, because I came because I got married to my husband and I was like on his visa process, not having the ability to actually work was like it was so hindering in a way. But then I got a job, I got my visa, and I got my job at Nordstrom. And Nordstrom has this really strict promote from within policy where you have to work on the floor. So I ended up being a salesperson on the floor of Nordstrom, of the retail stores. And then I literally had to make my way back into the corporate world. And Nordstrom as a company has 50,000 salespeople, but only 3,000 corporate jobs. So obviously, I was pretty lucky to be in a position to get one of those 3,000 jobs. But I didn't take that lightly, and I kept coming to work, showing up, putting my best foot forward, and grew pretty significantly and quickly to then start doing merchandise strategy. So my last job that I held at Nordstrom corporate was merchandise strategy for special occasion dresses. So like all the sparkly gowns, the Oscar gowns that you see at Nordstrom, my team, we bought those gowns for the whole company. So it was a really fun job. But at the same time, I was missing, just financial, like a way to get to financial freedom, a way to build legacy, a way to go out and give back to the community. And so I was like, okay, these are things that I'm really passionate about. And how do I go cultivate that? And that's how I started researching. I'm like, what should I do? Should I stick with fashion? Should I do something else? And through my research, I heard about flipping homes. And I was like, what is that? Because in India, where I grew up, we don't flip homes. We just break homes and we build new. So it's a very like US American concept that we never heard of back home in India. And so I started researching and I started educating myself. And quickly I formed a company. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I ended up quitting my job and diving into real estate full time. Bought my first house to flip back in 2014. Didn't make any profit. I actually lost very little money, but I lost money on that first deal. But I was just hooked to the process. And I was like, wow, this is so fun that if I just kept going and I kept buying projects that would actually make me money, then this is it. Like I could retire flipping homes because I love the process so much. So that started off with me flipping homes, and I started only doing full gut remodels. So they were nothing like small cosmetic. And it just so happened that my first one was a full gut, and then that just became my thing. So now every house that I buy, my remodel is nothing short of 150K. And with that much money, you can take the whole house down to the studs and then rebuild. So that's pretty much what I've done. And since I've done over 100 flips, I just love distressed properties. So I bought four plexes, 12 plexes, an office building. I buy them all distressed. It's a great way to raise equity instantly, but it's also a really good way to buy something for way below market. So you have enough margin to fail if you have to.
For sure. What,
Yeah.
what, what does your portfolio look like now?
It's just a mix of single families, anywhere from 1 to 4 units, apartment buildings, and commercial spaces. And then at any given time, I have 6 to 8 flips in the making.
Wow. That's
And
a
and
lot.
I mean, I say that, and then I'm also part of a $30 million syndication in Orlando, Florida. And I just got out of my North Carolina flip. So yeah,
Okay.
a little
Are,
bit of a
are you
lot.
a GP on the syndication in Orlando? And okay. Is that your first syndication experience? Okay.
Yes, that was my first
Awesome.
syndication experience. It's a great, great operations team, great GP team, people that I learned with so much. I learned to underwrite deals, I learned to structure deals, market them, raise capital. So just great group, and I'm super fortunate to be part of that group. But also on the other side, I am an active real estate broker. I do retail listings and sales. And I'm also on the board of a hard money lending company. So I advise them on big company strategies. And we finance a majority of the flips in the area. And we're in all states at this point.
Wow. That is a lot you've got going on there. That's
Yeah,
really cool.
it's fun. Yeah.
One question on your first flip. Did you have a mentor or somebody that kind of helped guide you through that, or just thinking for those listening in terms of wanting to get into flips, and you dove right into $150,000 flip, so you didn't take on a cosmetic $20,000 or $30,000 deal.
No.
Was that fully just based on gut feeling, or did you have somebody that helped you? And what would you recommend for somebody that
Yeah.
wants to?
So I found that flip through a wholesaler that said that the rehab budget on that was 60K. So it was only after I closed on it, and having never done a flip before, I don't know what really should be my construction cost. So then once I closed on it, I ended up walking a bunch of contractors through it. And every contractor had a different bid, all ranging from 100 to 200K. So obviously that wasn't a 60K flip. And that's why accidentally I got into a full gut remodel at that time. Um, I didn't have any mentors per se, but I had great people in the community that I'm still friends with today that were also flipping homes that could answer questions if I needed or help me find subcontractors, whatever, if I needed that. But I wish, so back then there weren't as many investors as we have today. This is 10 years ago. And so, and people had just been burned by the Great Recession. Like, they had gotten out of the real estate game completely. So there was a lot less happening in terms of education and community, but there was some. And so I did have good people to hash ideas with, but I didn't have a solid mentor,
Gotcha.
which is so different from today. You can
Yeah.
find hundreds of mentors on social media that are actually legitimately doing projects that are great that you should seek out in your area if you are planning on doing a flip yourself for the first time.
For sure. Yeah, the resources that are available today are, so much more than what was available 10 years ago, like you said. So
Right.
if you're listening and thinking about whether it's syndications or flipping or how to get out of your W-2, there's so many resources out there. Definitely reach out to Leka or I. We'd be happy to point you in the right direction, whether you're in Seattle or nationally, just based on the network that we've got. In terms of, I want to hear more about this transition to full-time investor. So you were doing some flips, and then one day you just had this realization or trigger where you were like, I'm not going to be at Nordstrom anymore. I'm going to go for it. Maybe tell us a little bit about like what that turning point was in your head, or if you had a number that you wanted to get to in terms of income or passive income, asking for a friend.
No. So, Ian, this is the difference between you and I. I actually only started flipping homes after I quit my corporate job. So
Okay.
I only bought my first deal to flip after I had given my notice at Nordstrom and said I'm not no longer doing this job, because here's the reason why. Every time that I went to do something, go meet with someone cool, someone that would inspire me, someone that would help me find a deal, um, and try to set up a meeting, they would say, "Hey, does Monday to Friday 9 to 5 work for you?" And that was the time I was in my job. And so each time I wanted to meet someone, I had this roadblock. Like I couldn't meet up with anyone in that same time. And so that's why I made the decision to quit my job and do real estate full time. So, and I, at the back of my mind, I was always like, look, if I bomb doing this, like if to fix and flip, it just doesn't work out for me, I can always go back and find another corporate job, whether it was Nordstrom or somewhere else. But once I left corporate and I left that world, I just could not see myself going back, A, working for someone else, B, actually tied to a desk from 9 to 5. Some days I didn't get up from my desk. I ate lunch at my desk and I worked at my desk. So I was like, that is just not for me. And that, I think, gave me a push to do more things with real estate, because I was like, there's no turning back.
That's so inspiring, and I hope everybody listening really takes something from that in terms of, not having it all figured out, but just having that ultimate belief in yourself that you can figure it out along the way, and you can always go back. Like you said,
Yeah.
I think people really compare. People don't consider that a lot of the times when they're making that decision on whether they should make the jump to try something different. They're kind of thinking like that old door will close and it's never going to open again.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of jobs out there, especially for the types of people that have that belief to begin with and that skill set, where they have an opportunity to go do something like full-time investing or, whatever it is that they're dreaming about on the other side. So,
But on the flip side, Ian, I really commend you because you are a real estate investor and you're a thriving real estate investor and you've done amazing things yourself, all while having a W 2. Like, I don't even know how you pull that off because that is, I tried and I couldn't do it. Right. So I
yeah.
just feel like you've done something that most people can't do and you've done it remarkably well. So I almost feel like, that's more commendable in a way.
No, I appreciate that. And I think, there's definitely things to learn from either side. I saw, Kevin O'Leary, there was a quote that he came out with recently that said, he said, a W-2 or a salary is the amount that an employer pays you to forget your dreams. And
Yeah.
I kind of saw that, and I kind of thought about it a little bit differently, more as a salary is something that an employer can give you to fuel your dreams. So for me, it's being able to get loans on some of these properties and being able to, take on additional debt, a good debt, 30-year fix, and take more risks, and ultimately be able to set myself up to build a portfolio that will be sustainable. And so when that time comes very soon, and I kind of step over to the other side with Leka as a full-time investor and full-time, real estate entrepreneur, I'll be able to feel confident that I'll never have to come back and, be in a good position. So you can do both.
Love what you just said. I mean, I feel like people need to go back and listen to this over and over again because you are 100% right. It is not a hindrance. It is, in fact, a great catalyst to get you to where you want to be. And I mean, people talk about quitting the W 2s and having this passive income. First of all, no income is passive. That's just a myth. And then, secondly, a high paying W 2 is such a good golden nugget to have in your back pocket. It can literally give you the wings to do everything else that you want to do around it. So don't discount that.
Definitely. So, so what are we looking at, going forward for 2024 or going into the future? What are you excited about, Leka, and what are you afraid of? Maybe with different. It sounds like we're maybe in that Goldilocks inflationary period where rates may be going down a little bit. But I guess what do you have going and looking forward to in these next few years here?
Honestly, a lot of confusion. Because I do have a few really good projects that I should essentially 1031 into other projects and start the whole process again. So I'm like, okay, is this the right time to do that? I'm just waiting on what the market's going to end up doing. But at the same time, it's, I have some great projects in the pipeline right now that are going to be ready and hit the market this year. But I'm like, okay, going forward, do I want to? And so far in my career, it's been very clear on, okay, should I focus on passive income or active income for this year? This year, I feel like I have to do a little bit of both. And so I'm going to be actively flipping homes, but I'm also going to be actively renovating projects for long-term appreciation and cash flow. So I guess it just comes down to where's the best deal? What am I seeing? And then also there's some projects that just don't work no matter what you put into it. Is it the right time to sell those projects off? I don't know. I think it's a year of figuring it out.
Yeah, no, totally. And every year, it's the same thing, kind of looking at what are my underperforming properties or where could I potentially use that trapped equity and roll that into a better ROI. One of my goals is to sell a fourplex this year that I've got some equity in and roll that into either a single family development play with a dadu or potentially a 6 to 8 unit townhome site. So if you got anything like that you see in your pipeline, definitely keep me.
I do actually. I'll keep you posted.
Cool. All right. So I guess one last question as far as, would you say if somebody were just thinking about getting started in real estate this year with rates where they are and prices where they are, would you say this is still a good time for somebody to get involved in real estate?
100%. Anytime you can get involved in real estate is a good time. A lot of times people have inertia. They just don't know how to take that first step. But I can tell you this, every time someone starts, they wish they had started like a year ago or 2 years ago or 10 years ago. I started 10 years ago and I'm like, man, I wish I started in the time of the Great Recession, and actually bought some great deals for literally nothing, dirt cheap. So, but no time is a bad time. If you can start today, start today. If you can start tomorrow, do it, but just start. Just jump off that cliff and um, and create your path on the way down. But do it.
I love it. Yeah, I hope you all are listening to Leka because she's not wrong on that. Get started today. So, how can someone find you if they want to find out more about you? Make sure they're following your journey. What's the best way to get a hold of you, Leka?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, just Leka Devatha. And I'm also on LinkedIn. My handle is also Leka Devatha. Those are the two best places to find me. And I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have offline.
Awesome. We'll make sure and put that in the show notes down below, and Spotify and YouTube, wherever you like to listen to your content. Thank you so much for being here, Leka. We could not thank you enough. We learned a lot today, and so excited to follow your journey. Go to the Cliff Averill event coming up here, and just continue to get to know you and follow along. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you for having me in. I cannot wait to just continue to see you crush your journey. And I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Take care.